Come on in to Margaret McSweeney's Kitchen for Kitchen Chat, where every week you'll meet chefs, cookbook authors, foodies, gourmets, and just plain people who love to eat. And along with laughter, chat, recipes, and stories about food, you'll sometimes also hear words of inspiration, love, and hope. As Margaret always says, Kitchen Chat is food for the senses and food for the soul. So grab a cup of coffee, put your feet up on a comfy chair, and get ready to spend a little time with Margaret and her friends.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I am just delighted you're joining me here in my kitchen in the suburbs. And we have a special sweet treat today for a guest. I know that many of you follow Jessica Merchant of How Sweet Eats, her wonderful blog, and on Twitter, her Twitter handle is @HowSweetBlog. So I can't wait to hear all about her new cookbook, Seriously Delish, 150 recipes for people who totally love food, and that's all of us, of course. So let's welcome Jessica Merchant to Kitchen Chat. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is great. I just kept turning the pages of your beautiful book, which is Seriously Delish. I wanted to pick up the food from the pages. They are yummy. With a capital
thank
Y.
you.
Oh, it's just like you're sitting here talking with us in the introductions. She said, so hi. You started off with, so hi, I put things in a book for you. Where should we start? It's just like sitting down with a cup of coffee as we turn the pages. So what was your inspiration for writing the book?
The biggest inspiration for writing the book, and this may sound a little crazy, is like the readers from my website. I mean, I love books. I am a total book junkie in general. You know, there's no better feeling to me than walking into like a library or a bookstore. And, you know, I don't even like to read books electronically because I just love that feeling of a book in my hand.
Right.
But I really have always wanted to write fiction.
Oh.
And I love fiction, but I also love to write in general.
Mm-hmm.
So back when I started my blog, I wanted to write a cookbook maybe in 2009, 2010, and that idea actually passed for me because I was loving blogging so much, and I was writing every day, and I was doing what I loved. I was cooking, I was sharing my best recipes on the internet, and getting to write every day and do, you know, what I want.
Right.
I hate saying it, but I had so many requests for a cookbook, you know, and I can understand it because I like to hold the tangible book in my hand as well, but I was also like, guys, like, I'm putting my best recipes on the internet for free. Why do you want a book? You know, eventually, though, I love my readers and the community on my website, and that's really the inspiration that I had behind wanting to put, you know, some of my favorite recipes down on the written page instead of the internet, you know.
Exactly. So it's a one-stop place in hard print, which is great.
Right.
Too. Right. Well, and I love too how you carry, you know, from the blog. Like, it's great. It just really seems like you're sitting right there with all of us talking, and I love that in your latest post about how you wish you could snuggle under the layers of the of the cheese or whatever it was that you were making, whatever dish, and because you just got a new king size bed or something, how you're tying food.
We did. It's wonderful.
It's great how you just tie food into everyday life and just the heart of the home and everything. It's so much fun, but you bring that same, you know, just we're sitting right down and chatting into your cookbook, you know, and as I said, when starting off with, so hi, you know, you just have that conversation. I love it. You have the conversation like in the kitchen with the readers,
Thank you.
Also giving some great ideas and tips, and I just love how you really put things together that I wouldn't, you know, ingredients that, I never thought of putting that together, you know. It's, so like butternut squash soup with cinnamon toast croutons. That's,
Oh, it's one of my favorites. And as we go in fall, I'm like dying to make it. I'm like, want to make it right now. I just love it.
And then this grilled watermelon salad with baby kale and burrata. What inspires you with creating the dishes? I have to know. How do you come up with, I'm going to combine this ingredient with that?
I have a few different inspirations behind my recipe development. One is like straight up boredom. I get very bored with food, and I love all food. I love to eat,
yes.
And I love trying different things. I'd say that that's probably the biggest thing is I want to always make something different. I'm always looking for the best. Like, you can give me the best brownie recipe and tell me it's the best brownie recipe, and I'll probably make it for when I need a reliable brownie recipe for a party, but I'm still going to go out and look for an even better one. It's just like how my mind is wired, because I'm just always looking for, something new, and maybe that's part of being the internet generation. I'd say boredom is definitely one of them. I know that's crazy. I really find inspiration in everyday life, and what I've discovered over these 5 years of blogging, it didn't hit me until later, is I think that I, luckily, have a somewhat relatable palate.
Yeah.
So I think, blogging has been a struggle because there's so many blogs and the market is saturated and you want to make something new. So a lot of times, bloggers come up with these crazy concoctions and they can just be, disgusting because you're like trying to be like super creative and let me pair kale with chocolate or, something like that. So of course I have many recipe fails and I certainly don't expect, everyone to love the things that I like. But what I've learned over these majority of years is that I think the things that I put together is fairly relatable. Maybe it's like an unoriginal palette or just a relatable palette is what I call it. That people tend to like, those flavors as well. And then in general, I find most of my inspiration probably from meals out, restaurants, some of my favorite restaurants. Even if it's not a meal I order, after I've read the menu, maybe I see like 3 or 4 things on there that look delicious, but I'm only going to order one.
Right.
And I think I'll pop the other 2 ideas into my phone and think I want to create something with these flavors.
Yes. Oh, well, that is great to know the sources of your inspiration. I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place, but.
and I love too how Ree Drummond describes your new book. She said, I'll say it again. This is a glorious cookbook. So this is rave review. So this is great. And I love too how you really are encouraging the readers to maybe go out of their comfort box in terms of what their typical palate might be. I mean, I love this lemon almond tilapia with coconut macaroon rice.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the biggest takeaways from the book is that because this is how I learned to cook. I'm completely self-taught and, mom taught and grandma taught.
Sure.
I think it's important to know that you can almost make any recipe your own. That's what I want people to take away from the book, is more so inspiration for recipes.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to add something, if they think of another flavor that they love with that lemon tilapia, add it in there and try it. And I think it's important to just get in the kitchen and test things out and trial and error. And that's how you learn to cook. That's how that's how you become a cook, and that's how you teach yourself.
Right.
So.
Right. Another one that popped from the pages, and every page will pop of these 150 delicious recipes, but the pretty prosciutto and fig toast with fall coming up. That is a lovely, lovely thing. Where did this recipe come from?
I'm a huge fan of the sweet and the savory together. Anything sweet and savory, always gets me. That's probably my favorite. I love to indulge and I love desserts. I definitely have what I call sweet teeth. But I'm definitely more of a cook because I don't like to follow directions as much when it comes to baking. And,
right.
I like to throw my own ingredients into, savory dishes more often than baking. So, the inspiration from that just came from my love for sweet and savory foods. And I love anything on toast. Just give me something on toast and I'm sold. And figs. Here in Pennsylvania, we don't get many great ones and we don't get them for an extended period of time. So when we do get them, I just go, crazy trying to figure out what I can pair them with. What's my favorite thing to pair them with? I love to put them on cheese plates and They're just so delicious.
Oh, that does sound yummy. And I love what you're doing with the plum. I never thought about a grilled plum with toasted thyme crumble.
I think it also comes down to I love anything grilled, but probably the majority of that inspiration was I was developing recipes in the summer. And I'm like, what can I throw on the grill? You know, I also have like a whole grilled fruit salsa. Again, I think it's part of like the whole sweet and savory.
Okay.
You know, grilled fruit obviously is still sweet, but with that grilling, you have a little bit of smoky flavor. I like to keep things simple, but maybe make them taste like they're a little bit more complicated, or maybe make it seem like more work went into it than it really did. You know, like the plums with the toasted crumble, you know, can be made in under 30 minutes, but it makes for like a pretty presentation and just makes for something different that people wouldn't think of. So if you'd like to serve them to guests, you know, for dessert, it's just a fun thing.
And so I'm just curious, how do you grill such a delicate fruit? Can you give us some grilling tips?
Here's what I find when it comes to grilling fruits, and I feel like it's the complete opposite is what, and you know, it may even be wrong, but it's what works for me. Yeah. It's the opposite of what you would think is, I think it's important to find a fruit that is not super ripe yet.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, it's almost the same as if you're going to like caramelize a banana or a peach in a skillet. Mm-hmm. You don't want it to be, you know, at its peak ripeness, because it's almost like just going to melt and dissolve it, you know, once it hits that heat. So I do find that it's important when you grill fruit, try to find a fruit that's definitely not underripe, but isn't overripe, you know, or isn't in its peak ripeness. And you can also use, a lot of people use, you know, grilling pans where that definitely helps with like the delicateness. It depends on the presentation if you want. If you use a grilling pan, you might not get those pretty little grill marks for serving that, you know, are important when you're photographing food for a book or a website, but you can still get the flavor.
Yes.
So there's always a couple options.
Oh, that does sound good. And you also have a wonderful section called Lighten Up for those, you know, who are counting a bit of calories or whatever. And can you share a little bit about that section and some of
Sure. So Lightened Up for me, and sometimes I take some heat on this, but Lightened Up for me, desserts are still desserts, and I don't like to consider it just fruit. You know, to me, if you're going to have fruit, that's fruit. That's an extension of your meal. Right, and it can be dessert, but it's not, you know, if I want a slightly lightened up dessert, I might still use butter, but maybe I'm going to use like an oat flour or a whole grain flour. Or I'm going to use coconut oil instead of butter. And just, you know, some of the ingredients might be trendy, but they may be overall slightly better for your health. Mm-hmm. So you still feel like you're getting to eat. One of my favorite recipes in that section is the blueberry bundt cake. Oh, because it's made with whole wheat pastry flour, and it just, you know, has this blueberry glaze. And it's definitely still a cake, and it's certainly still, you know, not the healthiest thing you can eat overall, but it's slightly better than, you know, your butter-laden, all-purpose flour, you know, bundt cake. You know, just some little tweaks to lighten up some of my favorite comfort foods.
Once again, putting and pairing the interesting ingredients and giving them a fun name. The vanilla, and with a B, vanilla with a B, vanilla, pumpkin. That was so interesting to see that.
Banana, vanilla, and pumpkin.
Yes. Such unique pairings and fun. You're really making food fun and introducing a variety of ingredients and making them, you know, relatively easy for a home cook to prepare and share with family and friends. I just love that. I love that. But
thank you. That's definitely one of my goals. To make it fun and not intimidating and, you know, not take anything too seriously.
Exactly. And once again, I was reading this late at night and maybe I dreamed this, but did I see a recipe for chocolate chip cookies with potatoes, or did I dream that one up?
I have a recipe for chocolate chip cookies with potato chips on my blog.
Okay, that's where I must have, not in the book, but in the blog. That's right. Can you could you share with us about that recipe too?
I posted that recipe about 2 weeks ago, mainly because I'm pregnant, and I think that was like my first pregnancy craving. You know, I was like, I want cookies, I want chewy cookies, but I want these like crispy kettle cooked chips, and what's going to happen if I put the chips in the cookies? And it definitely yielded like a wonderful chewy cookie.
Oh, I love that. And
it was really neat.
And congratulations. When are you due?
Thank you. I am due the middle of December.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Oh, yeah, we're creeping up on it.
So maybe a baby cookbook will be in the near future, too. It'll be fun to see how you adapt some of these recipes and with the baby food. Oh, that is so fun. And I just love, too, how you have such a wonderful following of readers with your blog and everything. Can you share just a little bit about your great readers?
Yeah, I absolutely love my readers. It is like my number one inspiration and goal behind blogging and doing this, and the encouragement that they've given me. And I'm just so grateful to them because they've truly changed my life. Having these readers has allowed me to, you know, make this a career and make this, you know, my full-time job. And it's something I'm just so grateful for because without them, this whole thing wouldn't exist for me. So I do my best to, you know, make them the number one priority, which is definitely difficult as, you know, sites grow because you're never going to please everybody and you're never going to, you know, keep everybody happy. So, and I'm definitely a people pleaser by nature. I'm a firstborn child, so it's I'm like your typical firstborn, but I love the community that we've, you know, created on my site, and I have people that I've spoke with back and forth for 5 years now. You know, it's wonderful. I wish that I had more time, you know, to dedicate to like keeping the conversation going and, you know, spending time with those readers virtually, and they're truly like the reason behind why I do this all. I have a bunch of internet friends. You know?
It's like a social media family. It's great. They become such a special part of it. And they, along with so many others, are going to really enjoy your Seriously Delish 150 recipes for people who totally love food cookbook. And also, listeners, you are going to be so impressed. You took these pictures, right? Jessica, you were the photographer. I am so.
I did.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So
thank you so much.
So, listeners, I will definitely put a link to her book and also give you a chance to win a copy of this new fun cookbook. So keep an eye on my Facebook page and Twitter on how that can happen, and definitely visit Jessica at HowSweetEats.com and follow her on @HowSweetBlogs and pick up a copy of her new Seriously Delish cookbook. Jessica, thank you so much for being on Kitchen Chat.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and listeners, as you go through your busy day, just remember, take a moment and savor the day.
Thanks for joining Margaret for Kitchen Chat today. Margaret would be so excited for you to drop by and visit with her at kitchenchat.info, where you'll enjoy podcasts, blogs, recipes, tips from chefs, and even great giveaways. She invites you to share your recipes and kitchen stories too. As Margaret always says, savor the day. From chefs and even great giveaways. She invites you to share your recipes and kitchen stories too. As Margaret always says, savor the day.